Hey everyone, hey everyone. Oh, dang. I don't even know what to say. My camera's moving. Oh my gosh, what a day. Hey everyone, Jeri here. Welcome to the very wet tiny house today. And that's the air conditioner in the background, and I really need to leave it on today, so please forgive the noise. I really loved making this book. I really did, and I hope you're going to enjoy it. I did want to say a few things before we get to the video, and you can always just fast forward to that if you like. Firstly, I had a comment from I'm going to say Ellie, E-L-L-E-F-F-E, and it was under the 10-minute techniques, and she asked if I could help you guys with perfection and mindfulness. And I'll be honest, I struggle with perfection myself sometimes, and you'll see in the video when I was doing the stitching along the top. So I did try to remember to just tell myself when I started to overthink things, just enjoy the process. So one of the things I was laughing about when I was making the video was I added these pages, these papers, these watercolor papers to the book. And I stitched, around the edge, and I was poking holes in it first and stitching it, and I wasn't measuring it. I was just poking the holes, and they're crooked or whatever, who cares? And I was laughing. I was thinking about the comment from Ellie, I hope I have your name right, and thinking how I have stuff to say about it, Ellie, so don't you worry. I wrote notes down when I saw your comment. We'll address it. But you know what? Just have fun. Oh, I have an itch. Just have fun. Just have fun. Let's all just try to remember we don't need to be perfect, okay? We're getting old. We're getting wrinkled. We are not perfect people, and our work doesn't have to be perfect either. You can see I'm feeling a little weird. The video took forever. Yeah. I enjoyed every minute of it, though, so don't you worry about that. I always enjoy creating and making these videos for you guys. I just do. So let me show you the book, because I can't take a picture because it's raining, and I usually take a picture out on my neighbor's picnic table. That's that gray table that you see in my pictures, and it's raining. So here's the book. And I wanted to say a little bit something. I did use glue stick. So it looks like it's stitched. It's not. I use glue stick. And if they come off, which I don't think they're going to, I'll just try the fabric tack. I was afraid to use it. I was afraid it was going to go through to my dots. So the other thing I wanted to say, while it's not raining for 30 seconds, is I used the ugliest dots I had. I don't even know what happened. I just picked them up. I didn't even really look at them. Look how boring they are. Oh my gosh. So yeah, I'm not going to worry about it. Again, perfection. I'm not going to worry about it. But I also wanted to address something that we talked about a little bit in our Facebook group. Dawn wrote, she's my co-helper moderator. She wrote a little note to everyone telling them, not to feel stressed out, that you have to keep up with me, because I've been making these dots for years. You're just starting. I have hundreds of them, so I'm grabbing them and making projects with them. And I want to thank you for that, because they were just sitting in a basket. I was just making them, and it felt good to just make them. So now it feels good to just use them. So don't worry about it. Watch the videos, be inspired. Shh, the dogs. Create when you can, create if you want to, and just watch if that is enough for you. Just watch. All right, what else did I want to say? I think that's about it. I'm feeling a little giddy. This video probably is going up a little late because it's late. And I'm sure the internet's not working today from all the rain. So I'm gonna send it up in about a minute. Yeah, it's going up late for sure. All right, there it is. Thank you so much for watching, and let's get started. Let's talk about the supplies before the rain comes back. It's been pouring here. So we're going to use 6 3-inch dot squares, 6 of those, some embroidery floss to stitch the squares together. We'll talk about that in a sec. Some sewing thread to stitch the lining to the dots, and this is the lining. So you're going to need a piece, some kind of a piece of cotton cloth or whatever that you want to use, and it has to be a little bigger than the width of the dots. So I would say give it a healthy 1.5 inches wider, so 4.5 inches for me, and the length. So the length of 6 3-inch dots is 18 inches. So I would suggest you cut a good 20 inches long for your lining, because you want a little extra, because you're stitching, you'll see when you do it, you're stitching a long piece and things could shift a little bit, so you never know. You're going to need some straight pins and some watercolor paper. And I am going to rip the edge of my watercolor paper, but you can cut the edge of yours. Now, I just want to quickly tell you about stitching these blocks together. So when I come back, they're all going to be stitched together. I'm using 2 strands of embroidery floss, and if you don't know how to whip stitch these squares together, watch Adotaday Part 2, and it shows you how to do that in that video. All right, let's move on. So fold over your lining and try to get it to be about the same size as your blocks. So you might have to ease it in a little bit here and there, because, you know, nothing's perfect, right? So I just started by folding over this edge is where I'm going to start. And I didn't fold this edge over because I'm going to pin this on now. And I'm going to start stitching it. So I want to stitch this to this, and then I'll see what I've got left over at this end when I get down here, and then fold that under. I'll show it to you. So I'm just going to step off camera and stitch this. All right, I'm right about here. I would have came on sooner, but the dogs have been barking. So I wanted to show you the thread I'm using. I'm trying to somewhat have blendable thread for what's on the top and not worrying as much about what's back here. I'm doing a very tiny whip stitch and just catching the very edge, and I don't even know if you can see that in the camera because it's blending in with the front, but you can see it on the inside. And if I keep the stitches nice and even, I don't think it's going to detract from the project. So yeah, I am a little fussy about my stitching. I'm sorry. You know, I was a quilter for so many years. I think when somebody says I was a quilter for, you know, most of my life, I think we automatically should assume that we were rule followers, and especially if we had our things in any shows, which I did, we tend to be a little bit more, I don't know, particular about our stitches. So I'm trying to break out of that, but something like this, nope, I'm going to do it the way old school. So you do you, though, like Catherine says, you do you, and stitch it however you want. And now I'm at the end. This is the inside. I'm at the end, and it is just a little tiny bit off, and that's why I told you to make sure that you had extra. So I pressed it, and then I pinned it so that it doesn't move anymore, and it'll be fine. I'm just going to stitch. I have to stitch from here to here, and then we'll do the next step. So I have the lining stitched totally to 6 dots. So because the plan is to fold this like a concertina book, I thought it would be helpful to have a little running stitch along the seam lines. I thought it would help with the fold factor. So you may notice, you can see a little bit more black stitching here than normal. I do not have an objection to that at all. And how I did that, I saved one to show you. It's been a bit of a challenge today to film because of the rain. And so I had to do a lot of stuff off camera. So what I'm doing is, I saved this one to show you. So I have 2 strands of embroidery thread, and I'm going in down below where I want to come out. And here, let me come out and then I'll show you. So I want to come out, I want my needle to come out right where that seam is, but I'm on the inside. So I have a knot on the end of my thread, and I'm going to pop the knot with using my fingernail, and you tug on it, and the knot goes in. So the knot's inside. And now I'm going to take my first stitch. So I went down a tiny little bit, and now I'm going to take my first stitch to get on the other side. And I want to come out right in the seam. Okay, so I'm going to be like stitching in the ditch. Yes. Something just happened to my thread, of course, because the rain isn't pouring at the moment. So now I'm just going to do a little running stitch, and if you can avoid the little railroad stitches, which is, you know what I call these little stitches, your running stitch is more apt to sink into the seam. So I'm not worrying about the size of the stitches or any of that stuff. I just am trying to get a running stitch in the seam. So if you pull it a little tight and then go like that to loosen it up, the stitches should disappear into the seam. Somewhat. You know, I don't mind them being here. Okay, we're just going to go all the way across together. And then I'll show you how I get rid of this thread, because you have to have a new thread. So when you get to the end where it's really thick, you might have to do the stab thing. And each seam you have to get rid of your thread and start over with a new knot. Okay, so now I'm going to the back, and you can do that pop knot thing, but I found it was just a little too congested up here to do that. So what I'm doing is I'm just going into the middle, and I'm trying to stay in the seam allowance. And this has worked for all the other ones. And I'm coming out right at the top, but turn your work over to make sure that your needle's not showing, that you didn't pierce the front. And then do that, and then I turn it around and I go back in. Kind of in the same spot. Don't worry, it's not going to undo it, because you're not going, I 99% don't think you're going to go back in the same spot to pull it out. So that's it. See, you don't really see anything. And then I'm just going to pull on this a little bit tightly, trim it, and there, it's gone. So now we have a running stitch along the seam lines, and now you're ready to fold your book. Okay, look how cute that is. So you can make these any amount of pages you want and any size. You know, you could make them 6-inch squares, whatever. Now we're not finished. No, we're not finished yet. So now we're going to actually put something in here. At this point, you can leave the book like this, but we will need some kind of a wrap. And if I had thought about it, when I was stitching the lining to the top, I would have stuck a little something in there, but this was a brand new idea, and you're seeing it in action as the thoughts come out of my head and through my hand. So I think I would have done that. I was more thinking about the construction of the whole thing rather than the end of it. All right, so you can, I digress as usual, right? So now let's open it up. So you can leave it just like this. After we put the closure on, we'll do that last. And you can stitch little fun little collage patches in there, or you can do what I'm going to do and go to the next step. The rain is very light, so I thought I'd come on and try to finish this. I ripped watercolor paper 2.5 to 2.5 by 2.5 inches, and I was originally going to put all watercolor paper on each square, but then I wanted to give you the option, if you didn't want to put the watercolor paper on, that you could make little cloth collages and put them in there as well. Or instead, I wanted the paper so that my book started to get a little bit stiffer when it was standing up, and that's why I thought about the paper. But if you don't care and you're fine with all cloth and you want to do it this way, then do it that way. Or if you want to do both, you can certainly do that and do every other one. Paper, cloth. All right, so if you're going to do that, then you're going to rip your watercolor paper to 2.5 by 2.5 inches, and I'm going to take it to the next level because that's what I do. And I have an awl here, and I'm going to poke holes, and I'm not going to measure it. I'm just going to poke some holes. And I'm going to do a little running stitch, and you can see it's very straight down. So I'm just going to do this to show you, because it's not raining at the moment. Gee, did she really mention that rain again? The knots on the back. And yes, I could have done them a lot closer together. That's a pretty big stitch. You know what this reminds me of? When I was a kid and you had those little kits with the cardboard and it had the holes punched in it and you stitched them. It's like the outline of an animal or something. What made me think of that? Because of this, right? Shout it out if you had one of those kits. So I am coming down to the home stretch, and I was getting ready to put my paper in, and I'm definitely going to put a piece of paper on the inside front cover and the inside back cover. So I thought I would take this as an opportunity to put, I have stuff stuck on my fingers, my closure in. So I have this twine that I'm going to use, and it really is nothing more than twill tape. We actually sell this in our Etsy shop, and I love it. I use it in a lot of different projects. So that was a shameless plug. What I'm going to do is lay this down on here and stitch it, and I'm just going to catch the layer, the lining layer, stitch that on, and then I'm going to glue this on. Okay, so let me stitch this on, and then I'll show. I'll leave the camera running when I stitch this on. I didn't want to put a knot there because I want it to be flat, so I just started stitching and then did a back stitch. And do turn it over to make sure you're not coming through to the front as usual, because that is something that I would definitely do and have done. I love this twill tape. We actually started carrying it several years ago during COVID. People were using it for strings on the back of their masks, but I have found it to be amazing for mixed media work. Still good. So I think I'm going to stop right here because I don't think the paper is going to go all the way to the edge, and I'm just going to do a back stitch. That was a weird back stitch, but anyway, that's not going to do. And now I can glue this down. Perfect. All right, so I'm going to try a glue stick, believe it or not, because I'm a little apprehensive about the glue going through to, you know, the dot. So I'm going to try the glue stick, and if this doesn't work, then I will use the fabric tack, but I will use, here's my fabric tack, I will use a very fine layer of it. So this is the one I wanted to use because it has the stitching on it. Yep, and I went over just a hair too far with that stitch, but I'm not going to worry about it. So if this doesn't stick, I'm going to put something heavy on it. If it doesn't stick, I will use the fabric tack. What can I put on there? This candle. I'll be right back. Hey, I don't know what I was thinking when I was talking to you a few minutes ago. I said I was going to do every other one with the paper, and as you can see, it's an even amount of squares, so that didn't work. So I put 2 in the middle and 2 on the end, and I definitely wanted the 2 on the end so that I could hide the string under there. And I am very, very happy. Let's see, let's fold this up with my book. Love it. And the watercolor paper is making it where it can stand up. I love it. I love it. I don't know what I'm going to do on the 2 empty spaces, but I'm not going to do it in the video. I'll show it to you in a picture at another time, because this video might be late. The rain is really causing me a problem. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I really enjoyed making this book. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do on the paper, but I will keep you posted. And